We
Okay,
automatically.
here I go. Hey,
Yeah.
I can't believe we're all together.
We're all somewhat together. So
It is
So
so
glad to see
exciting. So you look great, Nancy. You look very perfect. Right? It's the morning for you.
Yeah.
So I had this idea to do these conversations on my blog because I think people are feeling so isolated now that I thought this might be kind of interesting to hear what people are thinking about a whole lot of different topics connected with education and children. Larry, I was looking back at my emails and I found the first connection that I had with you, which was in April 2017, an email that Donna Santman sent me.
Right.
She made that connection. So I will forever be thankful to Donna Santman.
As Nancy and I will.
I've actually been thinking about this. I've been thinking about our discussion that we're going to have. I'm thinking about my book, not the Mandarin copy, Nancy, but just the copy that I wrote in 2016, and about how the book actually made our connection, I think, in a way. And something about the book, about the two of you seeing the book, something spoke to you, all right? And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about that. Like how did it speak to you? What resonated with you?
Well, I know Nancy knows this. She knows this book inside and out, but I have to tell you that initially when Nancy and I said we're going to take on this exciting challenge of a child-centered school and learning through inquiry and the importance of play, we were kind of like unsure about how best to move forward with this. And that's when I reached out to my colleagues all over the place and they said, oh, you've got to talk to Renee. So when we were pointed toward your book, reading it, that was just very, very clear because we said what we saw, what we noticed and noted in that book was something that we wanted to be able to see in action. And I know that was something for me. And I think Nancy and I discussed that and really said this has to be not just a book that we read, but a book that our teachers read in a book study. And that's what we did immediately. And then, of course, invited you to join us in that journey as well. Nancy, I think you might have.
Yeah, Larry, this how we connected with Renee and to learn more about the book. I think, after studying this book with our teachers, and the biggest benefit is that basically our children, because our teachers' quality has been raised through this book study. And we can see in the later, Larry, in the classrooms, that our teachers' practice are more different. You use the word action, so we did see some new actions in the classroom.
Can you give an example?
The benefit of the students.
Nancy, can you give a little bit of an example, maybe something that maybe stayed in your head that you saw differently? I'm really curious about this.
Yeah. For example, Larry, we studied the chapter about the classroom speaks, right? And so we invited Renee here to really set up classrooms with our teachers, and also we lead our teachers for a school tour. We specifically talk about how your classroom speaks to your children and to the parents. So I think this kind of purposeful design and practice really make a difference.
Yeah,
I would agree, and I think that is something that we felt very strongly about. It was not just, so often you read a book and then people go off and do their thing. But what we said is, how can we work to mirror? How can we make some of those things truly action? I think of the example what Nancy's talking about was truly important to how will the classrooms really speak? How will they really mirror our focus on child-centeredness? Everything from some teachers are traditionally focused on for example, putting the child's name up on the board if they do something really well or if they do something not so really well. And we said, well, is that really the best way to do this? Is there another way that we can honor our children in all their differences? I think of the way centers were working in the classroom. Before this, it was really I don't want to use the word willy-nilly, but it was kind of like, teachers were just trying things. But when we said, where are our children? What do we notice? And where are they? How can we then design a center that fits into the ongoing inquiry? So it's not a new thing. It was embedded within the inquiry. And we kept seeing that over and over. I can think of one example, and I should have pulled this up, but there was I think something in your book or something we had talked about where we listen to what children say as far as what words mean to them or what they think about. And we had children actually giving the definition, the 5-year-old or the 6-year-old definition of a word. What does it mean to be, what does it mean to be sad, or what does it mean to be happy? And they would give us this, and teachers were framing their definitions, truly framing them and giving them honor in the classroom. And it was really another way in which the children's voices were honored and their thinking was honored.
Well, what I love when I hear this, Larry and Nancy, is that, yes, you took things that I put in my book and then you made it your own. You and your teachers made it your own. It wasn't like you were like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, that's in the book. You read the book with them and then you kind of took it to your own place. In fact, I actually, in terms of you reading the book with them, I remember you sent me some pictures. Larry, you sent it to me. This is before I came to Hong Kong. You sent me some pictures of, or maybe you posted it on Facebook, of the teachers doing a study of the book, and they were diagramming things, and they were kind of, it was like messy. It was beautifully messy, I'd say.
Right.
All right. And that was so interesting for me because I never saw anybody do that. And it was very exciting. Like here you took my words and you were picking it apart, you were teasing it, and you were thinking about it. And I just love that. And then you invited me to do a Skype with you, which I had to learn how to do Skype, and I did it.
Well, I'll tell you, and something, it wasn't just with our teachers, but because we were a new school and we didn't have textbooks and all of this, we were really doing the planning through watching children play and listening to their conversations. And we learned different ways to do that through you, but it was not resonating with parents. And so what we did, Nancy and our colleagues, we decided to have a parent session, a few of them, where we showed them how we did that planning. And we took the transportation unit that you shared, and we took some of the units that we developed, and we helped the parents develop, co-construct a unit with us, which then said to them, oh my gosh, now I see it. And what I loved is a couple parents came to us afterwards and said, I didn't realize how hard this was and how much work you do. And I said, that's why it's not as easy as just open a book and everybody does it. So we learned that really together and as a result of working with you.
Yeah. Wow, that's terrific. And that makes me feel very nice. What about the teachers, all right? What kind of feedback, pushback, questions, what kinds of things, what did the teachers feel? I mean, this might have been new to some of them, sometimes it's difficult to internalize or even like try out something new, especially if you feel like, well, things are going well, we're okay. What's this new thing going on here? How did the teachers, I mean, they were so friendly to me when I came, they couldn't have been more gracious, but I'm just wondering about that. What did you feel? What kind of vibes did you get from them?
Yeah, Nance, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for teachers, and I see that they really took actions in the classroom. And I think your book really provided provided practical strategies for teachers on how to make that work in the classroom. We talk about student-centered, child-centered a lot, but these are all theories. But how to put the theories into practice is the important issue here. So our teachers read your book chapter by chapter, and we study these chapters together. And also that provided teachers the opportunity to really follow and practice the steps that you provided. For example, the block center, how to do block centers, and even you give examples of how high the blocks, the structure can be. And so, which means all this has some rules and the guidelines to follow. So this really gives teachers some tools to make that happen in the classroom. It's not just saying, oh, now we're doing the block center, but how to do it, and we don't know how. But by reading your book, and the teachers have clear instructions or clear ideas on how to make that happen in the classroom.
Right. Yeah, go on, Lynn.
No, I was just going to say how much I agree with that. It was there were, you know, it's always about the and. So it was the book and the dialogue and watching kids and doing the, so there were so many of these things as we moved through this. I was just looking at some pictures that I've taken, and the way when you were with us and you said, you know, to trust the children, just don't try to fix everything. Don't try to speak for them, and allow them to go through this. And I think of one example in kindergarten where they had a teepee set up with four poles, and they were having this, but the trouble was the floor is quite shiny. And so they were sitting there and they were trying to figure out, it was falling down every single day. And I just remember going down and the teachers usually would fix it for them. And so after our visits and after talking with the kids, it was one of those things where the teacher didn't fix it for them. And I went down one day, and Nancy, I'm not sure if you remember this, but I was looking through, and the children had taken off their shoes every day. And they took their sneakers and put them in the end of all of the poles. So the poles wouldn't fall down anymore. And they were so proud of this. And I remember that moment when the teacher came and said, and she actually took pictures and said, we didn't fix this for them. They did it themselves. And it's, even those little moments are huge, because they're going to do it the next time, and they're going to do it the next time.
Right, because we want them to become problem solvers, to feel like they have the ability to solve problems. And not only that, but we respect and expect them to start solving problems for themselves. So that, but when I came, one thing that really also made me feel really nice was when I came to the school. So this was in 2018, I was there.
Yeah, I think so.
So you didn't really have wooden blocks then?
No.
Very few maybe, but I don't remember seeing very many wooden blocks. And I really, I made a big deal about that because I'm a big block. I love blocks, you know.
Right.
And then there was a question of, well, where can we do the blocks? You know, I mean, the rooms are not huge rooms themselves, but then we looked at the hallway, and the hallway was, you know, I don't know the hallway, but the passageway or the communal areas were huge, you know. And we talked about, well, could you have blocks out there? And then I saw photographs again on Facebook of children building out in the hallway with their blocks, and I felt so excited. I was like, yes, they did it. I was very excited about that.
We did. We got blocks for the early years program, as well as all the way up through third grade. Our kids still were playing with blocks and doing some of the work. Not just wooden blocks, but they were doing the blue blocks as well, which are quite nice because they can use those during, you know, free play time and as well.
Right.
Yeah,
I just want to go ahead, Nan. Sorry.
Yeah, actually now every day our children are building with blocks. Larry, like you said, the wooden ones and the blue huge ones, they are using that every day during their free play. This is one of the favorite centers that children choose to do.
Right. And I, you know, right now I'm working with middle school in an interim position. And it's one thing that I wish we had there as well, because I think that it could absolutely be something that would benefit the kids, because honestly, I don't think you're ever too big to do something like that. I want to run back really quickly because I did find the photos, and this is embarrassing because I wish I could save my screen, but I don't know if you can see this, but these are the framed definitions that kids
right.
wrote, the teachers. And so the one word is disappointed. And the teacher was working with children around this. And one little boy named Aaron said, disappointed is when you take sad and angry and you mix them together.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It was so beautiful. And then another one, opposites are things that are exactly different, Patrick said. So but when you do that, again, children think differently about the way words work. They think, they use them in powerful ways, and then they embed them into their writing. So it's that honor of the children and what they're thinking is about. And I think the book echoes that very much as well.
So your school, all right, is, I have a feeling within the huge country of China and Hong Kong is something very unique in a way. It's a special school. I mean, and here too, I mean, I very rarely encounter an administrator who said they want to have a play-based curriculum. It's very unusual. Occasionally, but it's very unusual. All right, but Nancy, well, actually, it was both of you, but you kind of had the idea of translating my book into Mandarin to distribute to a country where education was very different, right, than I was presenting in my book. So, what did you expect to happen from this? What were your expectations? That was a huge job for you to do that.
Yes. So that's why we have to. I have to thank Larry for making this beautiful bridge for you and me. And we studied your book. It's because Larry bring the book to Hong Kong. So after we studied the book together, I just thought, I come from China, and how about such a wonderful book, so useful? How can we make our teachers in China benefit from this book? So that's how I started to work, with a publisher in Beijing to really think how to make that happen. And during the process, Larry provided lots of support, and also Renee, you may remember that I came back to you to talk about some terms, right?
That's right.
So the reason I wanted to do that is that China is a country that really value education, and people try very hard in this field. But what is missing is that how to make child-centered education happen in the real classroom. That's why when I read your book, I really want to translate so the teachers in China can really see what does child-centered mean in the US and how to make that happen. And you even provided step-by-step instructions. So I think it's very easy and practical for the teacher to start to practice in their real classroom life. This is a big reason. That's why I translated book. And we did it. Although I spent a lot of time working on that, but I think it's really worthwhile to spend the time. Because now it's not only about your book, it's famous in the whole world now, but it's also mainly about, so many teachers had to benefit from your work. And so your contribution to the education is not only in the US, it's really in a huge market in China as well.
I did want to say, Renee, really quickly, going through that, what Nancy said is absolutely true. When we're asking, because at Dalton in Hong Kong, we have our Mandarin speakers as well as our English speakers. And while many of the teachers are bilingual, reading English can sometimes be a big challenge because it's not our native language, right? And so when we're trying to get them to collaborate together and plan together, while they understood some surface information, they didn't understand it deeply. And that is what impressed me about Nancy by saying, we want to make sure this is such an important book that we're really using today, even at the school, as a guide. How can we allow our partnership to be deepened but through a better understanding and a deeper understanding. And so now our English team has your original copy and then Nancy's copy of the translated text. And I do want to chuckle quickly about the word play, because in China, it's different than in English. And that was a big deal. Nancy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the difference in play and the language.
Well, yes.
Yes. So when I was translating the book, so basically, all the contents are very exciting, you know, for me to introduce to teachers in China. But the issue is how to translate play. You know, we talk about play-based learning a lot, but I feel that Chinese don't really like the word play, especially teachers and the parents. The reason is that everyone thought that school is a place for learning, to study. It's not a place for play. But when I talked with Renee and Larry, and I realized that actually play is the nature of children's learning. They learn through play, right? So I'm thinking, how can I emphasize this in China? Although I think my impact might be very small or little, but I want to try that. So I communicated with the publisher in Beijing. At the beginning, they didn't like this idea, you know. Usually in China, they translated play as games. It's more formal wording, so people like it more. But I keep negotiating with them, and I said, you know, even Renee, the author, really think this word is super important. We cannot make any changes, and we want to emphasize the importance of play. So in the end, they finally decided to use the word play in the Chinese version. But what's fascinating is that now when I look through you know, the website to sell the book, actually different shops are selling this book, and I still see some shops use the word game for the title of the book. I guess one of the reasons that to make people feel better, you know, about this word. But I think now the word play is on the cover of the book. The impact is already very heavy in China. Yes.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Right. So let's then. So the book came out, all right, and it was distributed, and people started buying it. So I'm wondering if you had any surprising or unexpected responses from teachers in China, you know?
Renee, I don't know whether you still remember April this year. You know, in China, there was a book study group. They purposely studied your book, Choice Math. And then we had a WeChat group, remember? And they invited you join the WeChat group as well.
Right.
Actually, I remember. And that night we had a huge discussion, and the teachers from all over China to ask you questions. Remember?
Yes, I do remember. I was nervous about. I couldn't figure out exactly if I was doing it correctly and if they were hearing me. So I was actually so nervous that I almost didn't hear. You know.
Because you're so famous that day, actually you felt nervous, but everyone heard your voice, and we had translators. Actually, we had multiple translators to translate your questions,
Right.
making sure that the teachers understand your responses, and also making sure that you hear teachers' questions. So from those kind of response, you know how interested the teachers in China are about your book. And they ask a lot of practical questions because their classrooms are different from the ones you described in some ways. So they want to know every single detail. They want to know how to really put your examples workable in their classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a huge impact to the teachers. And also after that, the Beijing Normal publisher group organized online workshop. They asked me to introduce choice time, basically. Yeah, I shared with you, and can you imagine about 100,000 teachers in China, 100,000 teachers
Wow.
at that night listened to my online workshop. And of course, we spent nearly half an hour to ask the questions. So you know, Renee, your book has heavy impact in China.
That's cool. It's you who said it.
I think because of your books really provided these opportunities for the teachers to implement in their classrooms, and it's really practical. It's not only some big words about the series, and then people put them on like a poster on the wall, or they say how important it is using words. These are very useful and practical strategies that they can use in their classroom the second day after reading your book. That's the beauty of your book.
You know, after I did have that conversation on what is it, WeChat?
WeChat.
On WeChat. For a while, I kept, I wrote back and forth with some of those teachers. All right, they wrote to me, I wrote back to them. After a while, it stopped because I realized that I was getting in the middle of other conversations and I didn't know what was going on. But what was interesting to me is that many of the questions that they presented to me then were not so very different than the questions teachers ask me when I go into a school in New York City, or if I go into a school in South Carolina. You know, I mean, it very similar questions. You know, teachers, there are questions that just go through, you know, through different. But I also was thinking about something else that came to me today, was that I was very lucky to have the opportunity to visit schools in Italy, in Reggio Emilia, where they have very interesting, really super interesting early childhood program. And I went there 3 times, okay? And when I came back each time, the first time I went, I was still teaching. I was still in my own classroom. And then after that, I was working as a consultant the second 2 times. And what I realized is that I could bring back many things that really stood out to me in Reggio Emilia, but I couldn't necessarily transfer them or help teachers transfer them into classrooms in the United States, because it's 2 different cultures. I mean, we could take things that really resonated and that would make sense, all right? But it wasn't like we could copy what they were doing in Reggio Emilia, all right? So here, I mean, China has their own culture, and I'm wondering, thinking in that way and thinking about what I presented in my book, have you thought about some things that might possibly not translate one-to-one, but might have to change or be a little bit different in China? I don't know if I'm clear about my question.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You bring up a really good point, Renee, and I know Nancy probably has 1,000 examples that she could give. But not long ago, the English education department, the education department of England, I don't know, Great Britain's education department, went to Shanghai and took their math curriculum. Oh, yeah. And the only thing they changed when they took it back to England was the yuan to pound. And honestly, I can't wait to see how this turns out, because mathematics in China is very different than mathematics in England or mathematics in the United States. Yes, math is math, but it's the approach and it's the cultural approach to mathematics that's so different. So as much as that is the same with the way we see play, and Nancy, you can probably give some examples. I know I can think of things as well, but what would you say are some examples you have?
Larry, I agree with you that you mentioned that the math thing. But I think in China, during the early childhood education field, especially kindergartens, and I think teachers and the programs are pretty open because it's not under the China Education Department regulation. So basically, the teachers have lots of freedom to try what they want to do. So what I see from these areas that I didn't really see lots of culture conflicts. And what I saw was that teachers are open to try something different, something new. So like the example Renee provided in the book, and because the teachers in China, they may never saw those, or they may never hear those before. And these are all very new. And suddenly they feel, oh my God, there were so many new ideas I can really try in my classroom. So that's why so many teachers responded to Renee's book and the workshop. And the only reason is that they visually saw what can happen in the classroom. So this is, in these areas, I didn't really see a huge difference. But the teachers in China, we do have some traditional or their fixed way to think about teaching and learning. So for example, when the teachers are teaching, they have to sit, the students have to sit in a special way. But in US kindergartens or classrooms, we can see the freedom of the children. They choose what they want to do, and they have lots of ownership of their learning. But in China kindergarten, you still saw a lot of teacher control activities. This is the huge difference. So I hope that Renee's book really change people's thinking in this lens.
But
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think that is probably the biggest piece, would be the shift and the belief that children's voices are really important and that they have something to offer. Because so often in Chinese education, it's very scripted. It's very much, this is what we're going to do. You're going to try this, you're going to do this. And as Nancy said, I think the beauty of this is teachers stepping back and trying on some more flexible thinking.
Well, Nancy, I just wanted to tell you that here in the United States, it's not as free as one would think it is. Honestly,
It's true.
And I think that has been a challenge that I felt very strongly in kindergarten. It may be in pre-kindergarten with 4-year-olds is freer, but when children are in kindergarten, which are 5-year-olds, it's changed a lot. At a certain point, kindergarten became full day as opposed to half-day programs. And once it became full day programs, there was this feeling like, well, it's full day, so they have to have all these academics. And so in many, many kindergartens, they either have no play, really no play, or they have play on Friday afternoons if they're really good, or if they do have play every day, it's often at the very end of the day after they've had reading, writing, phonics, mathematics, and that has been a big focus of mine, is to try to change that, right? Because I think it's really important, But another challenge that I feel, and I'm wondering how you think about this in China, is, so maybe I make inroads in kindergarten. I've made some inroads. I can think of very specific inroads I've made in specific schools, all right? But it's more difficult then if I want to bring it into the first grade, or if I want to bring it into even second grade, where I think it belongs, and so it's a real push. It's a real push. So for example, there's one school that I've been doing work in, where it's mainly actually a Chinese population in the school. It's an area where there are many immigrants from China. So teachers in kindergarten, bless their souls, have made such big changes. They've been incredible. They've been marvelous. Then not first grade. First grade teachers think, no, you can't do this, all right? But then one of the kindergarten teachers moved up to first grade. And she said, I don't care what anybody said. I saw how incredible the children did. I'm going to do this in my first grade classroom. And she does, you know, and it's difficult for her because the other teachers give her a lot of pushback on it, you know, but the principal supports it, which is great. You know, if she wants to do it and she can still do her academics, he said it's okay. Then a second grade teacher saw it and she said, I want to do it too, you know. And so in this one first grade and this one second grade, they are doing inquiry studies, they're doing choice time, you know, and that's great, but not in the other classrooms. So it's a bit of a challenge here too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll ever get to that in China too, in their elementary school.
Yeah, but you know, Renee and Larry, in China, basically primary school and kindergarten are totally separate. So once children move to primary school to P1, so they are going to use a totally different approach about learning. So it's not play-based anymore, you know, they focus more on academic studies. And even the classroom setups are very different. Very different.
Very teacher-centered, yeah.
Well, maybe that'll change a little bit. Who knows? You know, I mean, here, children have been home with their parents, all right, with their families, with their grandparents. During, I don't know if you're still in a lockdown there, but, you know, during this pandemic, you know, and I'm just hoping that there'll be some changes after here in particular and in China too. And I'm wondering, thinking about that, I think that's right. Once the pandemic ends, and it will end someday, right? Do you envision anything changing in the education of young children based on what people have noticed about their children when they've been home all this time? Is that too crazy a question?
Larry, Renee, I have to go because I have the arrival duty.
Oh, you teach, right? You have to run your school, right?
And
well,
today,
maybe this is something for us to think about, because I mean,
sure.
I don't know if you can answer it now, but it's something to think about. And if you actually think about it and you want to write to me, and, you know, I would love to hear what you think about that. What are people? What are they going to bring anything positive out of what's happened during this time? I want to.
We could sure hope. We could sure hope.
I hope so. I want to thank both of you. It's been such a pleasure for me to speak to you. I hope we can actually just socialize and speak some more. But
yes, for sure.
But
yeah, sure. But so glad to see you two here.
Nice to see you too, Nance. Thank you.
I haven't seen Larry since he left.
Maybe I see him more than you do now.
Yeah. Okay, so find another time to talk. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Nance. Bye. Say hi to everyone. Bye.
Bye. I will.